Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's live streaming. I appreciate you all, whether you are watching this stream on YouTube, on Rumble, or on Ganjing World. And I truly don't know where to start this stream. I don't know, first of all, what the hell Pashinyan is doing there. Secondly, I truly do not understand the obsession with kissing the hands of Donald Trump. All these compliments for Donald Trump in order to gain his approval and gain the empire's mercy, probably in this case, right? It's heart-itching to see all these leaders basically groveling for Donald Trump, and one of whom was the Prime Minister of Pakistan. And it's really embarrassing and humiliating to see all these leaders gathering in Sharm el-Sheikh to nominate Donald Trump for Nobel Peace Prize, like the Pakistani Prime Minister said. Unfortunately, this is not going to bring peace to the region. So brace yourself, because today we're going to dig into not only the so-called peace deal, but also a very important video which I found on X today, belonging to a former Mossad agent who has revealed the next step of Israel in the Gaza Strip, basically. So tonight we are unpacking one of the most revealing moments in recent Israeli media and podcasts, the reflections of a former senior Mossad operative, a man who once stood at the heart of Israel's intelligence establishment. His statements given in a long interview or a podcast conversation offer a very rare window into how Israel's security elite actually conceptualizes power, war, and peace in the Middle East. For many observers, these remarks might sound like routine talk about deterrence and national defense, but if you listen carefully and if you understand the strategic culture that produced them, what emerges is something far, far deeper. It is an admission that perpetual conflict has become the operating logic of Israel's statecraft, and that security has evolved into a doctrine of endless preemption. So I'm going to play some of the segments of this interview with the former Mossad agent, and we will comment on them, because what he says here is very revealing, especially about Gaza, Iran, Syria, and the entire region. So let's start segment by segment.
Feel we finished the job?
We will never.
Have we finished the job in Gaza? He says. And the Mossad agent, former Mossad agent, says, we never finished the job.
Feel we finished the job?
We will never finish the job, because we always have new enemies.
Why didn't we take Khomeini out?
So, have we finished the job? No, because we will always have new enemies. This is what the former Mossad agent said. And in my opinion, this explanation that we never finished the job, not because Israel fails militarily, but because it cannot afford to live without enemies. This is the main point. Israel, at some point, in some events, in some war zones, can so-called finish the job, but they try to keep, let's say, some of their enemies alive, because this gives them the perfect justification to continue their military subjugation of their enemy. And in this case, if Israel cannot, let's say, afford to live without enemies. This is the simple premise of this. And that single sentence, in my opinion, captures the essence of Israel's strategic dilemma. Because for 75 years, Israel's legitimacy and identity, collective identity, have been anchored to external threat, right? The idea that Israel survives because it fights. That's the main premise of the Israeli state. And unfortunately, for them, for the Israelis, this has created a paradox, right? and not only for the Israelis, for the entire region. Because after each military conflict, let's say in 48, 67, 73, 82, or now in Gaza, after every military conflict clash, these conflicts always breeded the next confrontation. Occupation, expansion, and deterrence in such circumstances become indistinguishable, right? And so what began as the pursuit of security turns into an ideology. And this ideology is the ideology of insecurity by design. You always create an insecurity for yourself in order to justify your expansionist policies in the region. So from a geopolitical perspective, this is not accidental, right? When Israel's founding narrative is built on siege and exceptionalism, then its institutions adapt accordingly, right? Its economy depends on militarization. Its diplomacy revolves around existential fear, and its alliances, especially with Washington and the collective West, thrive on the constant portrayal of shared enemies. So ending the conflict anywhere in the region would therefore mean redefining Israel's very reason for existing as fortress democracy surrounded by barbarians, right? This is how Israel portrays the region. So the system always resists that outcome, which is peace, because perpetual crisis guarantees perpetual support from the allies of Israel. Now, let's move a little bit to what he said about Khamenei, right? Why Israel hasn't killed and assassinated Khamenei in the past phase one of the conflict.
Feel we finished the job?
We will never finish the job because we always have new enemies.
Why didn't we take Khomeini out?
I tell you what, because he is not just a regular leader, he's a religious leader, and it's different.
You start a religious war?
Okay. And they can replace him. And, you know, sometimes if you think about Tehran, it looked like we suddenly stop and we...
So this is the premise that Israel didn't take out Khamenei because he's a religious leader, and this could lead into a religious war, right? Now, this same logic appears when this Mossad agent addresses the question. Now, he claims here that Israel refrained, right, from targeting Khamenei because doing so could ignite religious war. Now, on the surface, this sounds like prudence, right? A concern for regional stability or restraint, and they don't want to start a regional war in the region or religious war in the region. But let's be serious. Analytically, it reveals something else. It is a recognition from this former Mossad agent that Iran acquires deterrence and enjoys deterrence. Because for decades, Israel has demonstrated that it will strike almost anyone, anywhere, if it believes its security demands it, right? From Beirut to Damascus, from nuclear scientists in Tehran to convoys in Sudan, everywhere, Qatar. Yet, when it comes to Iran's highest leadership, as you see, caution prevails because Tel Aviv knows that certain red lines would trigger uncontrollable, let's say, escalation. Now, Iran's capacity for asymmetric retaliation, I have explained this in length on this channel, Syriana Analysis, but let's sum it up into just few factors or few things. Iran has established regional networks, alliances between state and non-state actors. It has a huge missile force. It has cyber capabilities. It can wage cyber attacks against Israel. So this has created a balance of fear that even Israel's most hawkish planners acknowledge, right? So in realist terms, I believe this is deterrence stability through proportional vulnerability. This is what he tried to tell us without telling us. This is deterrence stability through proportional vulnerability. Israel's nuclear ambiguity, my friends, no longer guarantees impunity for them because any large-scale action against Iran could invite a chain reaction that would draw in US forces to destabilize the global economy, something that the American planners do not want to at the current moment. Consequently, beneath the rhetoric of strength always lies the unspoken admission that Iran's strategic depth works against Iran. So I just want to check some of the comments. I just want to ask people to, because we don't have nowadays our moderator, and I would like for the comments to stay in line with the topic that I am talking, and please engage in respectful conversation, civilized, learn something from others, teach others something, and don't just type random words and random emojis and attack people. I would really hope that until our moderator comes back, that you would abide by these rules and regulations, because if I see somebody just trolling and posting regular emojis and repeated words, I will just block them, because this is leading to other people leaving the stream, right? We want everybody to stay. And for example, zero raus immigration yet. Like, I don't know what this person wants. I'm talking about, for example, what the former Mossad agent is talking about, a serious issue in Gaza, in Iran, and in Syria, and in Lebanon. And he says Syrians out. He wants to kick out the Syrians, right? Okay, raus aus meinem Land. You can yell as much as you want, my friend. This is not in your hands. And this is not in my hands. So if you like for the Syrians to be kicked out of your country, you can go to your legal channels, you can talk to your government, and this is not the channel that you come and spew your hatred, like calling them pest, etc. So I will block such people, because I don't have a place and let's say any lust for such people to come and poison the live chat, because we want everyone to really engage in a conversation with each other. So we address two of the main factors in this very revealing interview. The first one is that the former Mossad agent, basically he's acknowledging that Israel needs perpetual security paradigm. They need always enemies to thrive and guarantee foreign support from the US and the others. And because they have built a collective identity about surrounding the fact that there is always an existential threat from outside against Israel, and this is how they thrive and they continue in the region and also justify their expansionist policies. And the second factor is, of course, that Israel didn't assassinate Khamenei because he says, we don't want to start a religious war, but the fact is that the Iranian side has established deterrent stability through proportional vulnerability. Now, let's go to a very important statement that he made here. I would just send you to the video.
Sometimes, if you think about Tehran, it looked like we suddenly stopped and we made this ceasefire. But come on, let me compare it to Lebanon.
Okay.
Because it was exactly when we entered to Lebanon, to the south of Lebanon, and we destroy so many buildings with missiles and the Dahya and everything. And suddenly we got a ceasefire. There is no agreement. We just have a ceasefire. I remember they spoke about 2 months and then they extended in 1 month. And now we are acting almost every day in Syria, in Lebanon.
So, despite the ceasefire agreement, in Lebanon, in Syria, and elsewhere, they're acting freely and they're enjoying a free hand in the region to continue their military operations. So this same interview basically is underscoring how so-called peace deals function in practice in the eyes of Israel, right? Following Washington's this much publicized Gaza plan, Tel Aviv speaks of ceasefires, or how Tel Aviv sees ceasefires and reconstruction is different from what other people see it. Now, Tel Aviv speaks of ceasefires and reconstruction while continuing operations in Lebanon and enforcing total control over Gaza's airspace and borders, right? This only reflects what political scientists call negative peace. This is a very important term. I think many people should be aware of how Israel basically constructs and establishes a negative peace. It is the absence of overt conflict combined with the persistence of structural domination. So, negative peace is the absence of overt conflict combined with the persistence of structural domination. For Israel, such arrangements provide international legitimacy without changing the fundamental reality of occupation and blockade, right? The rhetoric of ending war becomes a tactical pause that resets the battlefield under more favorable conditions. So, what a former Mossad agent officer describes here as routine operations across Lebanon, in Syria, or so-called preventive measures inside Gaza are precisely the practices that ensure that this cycle of violence continues, right? Many people in strategic studies, this is known, by the way, as a security dilemma spiral. It's the every move taken for protection by one side appears offensive on the other, provoking new resistance. So what Israel basically does, it acts upon defense against an enemy, and this defense is always seen by its enemy as an offense. So this is called the security dilemma spiral. So every time Israel takes a so-called protection act, the other side will see it as an aggression, and this will provoke resistance against Israel. And by igniting more resistance against Israel, Israel will use that resistance to say this is terrorism, and there is attacks against us. Our security is jeopardized. We are under threat. There is an existential threat against us. And then they will, of course, use the history of the Holocaust to give the impression that all the Jewish people in Israel and abroad are under existential threat in order to justify its occupation, expansion, and grabbing new territories and enforcing basically an apartheid system, right? So by admitting that these operations never truly stop, the Israeli former Mossad agent revealed that ceasefires basically are nothing but instruments of management. They use it to manage the conflict and not to solve the conflict. And this is a very, very important confession, in my opinion, that this former Mossad agent has said in this during this conversation. So what else did he say?
Post-Iran attack, we're certainly living in a safer world today.
Of course. And I hope that we will have another attack. We'll attack them and they will attack us. Let me tell you something about Gaza.
Yeah.
So this is very, 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 very important, by the way. I want you to listen to this one more time. Are we now living in a safer place after the attack, the first phase of attack against Iran? And then he expands into Gaza, and this is very, very important because remember, on this channel, I've been arguing that there is a possibility that Israel knew about the October 7 attack, and they let it happen, and they enacted the Hannibal Directive, killed their own people, and then enabled again or instrumentalized and weaponized the atrocity propaganda to unleash a barbaric onslaught against the Palestinians in Gaza. This was a premise that I still stick to, and I believe that the Israeli Secret Service or some people in the Secret Service, they knew about October 7 and they let it happen. And in this interview, what he says here is mind-boggling because, in my opinion, he's probably giving an indirect answer by basically saying that we are able to employ people in Gaza to attack us, and then we go on offensive against the Palestinians. Take a look.
We're certainly living in a safer world today.
Of course. And I hope that we will have another attack. We'll attack them and they will attack us. Let me tell you something about Gaza.
Yeah.
That at the end of the day, after we bring all the hostages, we will have agreement. But there is something that's stronger than this agreement. When Gaza will forever pay for this terror attack.
What do you see
So,
as the future for Gaza?
No future.
Parking lot? A dumping ground?
For what a creative idea.
I do.
Okay, we have agreement. Suddenly they send some missiles. our people send missiles from inside. And then we said, oh, there is a missile from Gaza. So now we can answer them.
So you think that's also something that's possible?
Everything is possible. We are going to erase Gaza. We have to take the people there and send them to Libya.
And what happened?
Do you notice what he said about the they have people in Gaza who could fire? Like,
Our people send.
You.
Okay, we have agreement. Suddenly they send some missiles. Our people send missiles from inside. And then we said, oh, there is a missile from Gaza. So now we can answer them.
So you think that's also something that's possible?
Everything is possible. We are going to erase Gaza. We have to take the people there and send them to Libya.
And what happens with the land itself? Forever a monument to destruction?
First of all, we have all the tunnels. We need to clean the area. And we can build a big port that you can make a lot of business with the Abraham Accords. And Trump got a mission to close all the war situations all over the places. And he wants to move forward with the Abraham Accords, and he wants to include new countries, talking about Lebanon, Syria. But at the end of the day, Trump is great for us. I saw
Trump is great for us. So he spoke about Mossad's capability, willingness to carry out false flag attacks from inside Gaza on Israel, and then blame them on the Palestinians in order to continue the operations and the military onslaught against the Palestinians. I think this is a particularly revealing part, right, of this conversation, which involves false flag operations, covert operations, missions carried out through intermediaries or manipulated actors. Without diving into any unverified specifics, the concept itself is central to modern intelligence work, this plausible deniability, right? States create distance between their intent and the action by outsourcing it. So from a geopolitical standpoint, this serves two purposes. One, it maintains escalation control, and two, it shapes international narratives. When such tactics become habitual, they also blur accountability. Who is carrying out these attacks on Israel, right? So the line between defense and provocation dissolves, and policy becomes performance. And this has been going on forever, this type of attacks, false flag attacks, covert operations. This is why secret services basically exist. And this is why I'm not saying that Mossad infiltrated Hamas and let them do this attack on October 7. I don't have evidence for that. But I believe that they knew about the attack and let it happen. Probably there were some people, infiltrators in Hamas or manipulated people in Hamas, who were part of the planning of this attack, and Israel knew about it, and they were spying on the operations, but they did nothing. They laid down their arms for 6 hours, allowed this attack to happen, enacted Hannibal Directive after 6 hours, killed their own people, atrocity propaganda, and the rest is history. It happened all in front of our eyes, right? By the way, as you're watching this stream, my friends, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button, the thumbs up as you are watching, because of the spammers, there was around 300 people watching this stream at the beginning, and then the spammers came into the live chat, started posting, sorry to say, crappy things, and many people left the stream. So I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button so that this stream reaches to more people. Now, I think this confession that Israel relies on covert operations inside enemy territory also confirms how information warfare, perception management, and kinetic force have merged into a single continuum, right? The battlefield, my friends, is no longer just physical between two armies or one army and the militia, one army and non-state actor, etc. No, it is also psychological and political. And this is designed to sustain legitimacy at home in Israel while confusing adversaries abroad. Now, there is another thing that this former Mossad agent has revealed, and I think it's worth analyzing it. The claim that after the so-called phase 1 of attacks on Iran, the world is now safer, right? my friends, in geopolitical terms, such statements are completely seldom descriptive. They are performative. They are not truthful, and they are not factual. These statements project the illusion of stability to reassure allies and investors, even if conditions deteriorate. Empirically, the outcome of this phase one of attacks against Iran is the following. Israel's campaign failed to neutralize Iran's nuclear program. We have discussed that in length on Syriana Analysis, which remains under dispersed and hardened infrastructure under the ground. Phase one couldn't eliminate Iran's missile capabilities, arguably one of the most advanced in the region. But what Israel achieved, however, after October 7, is the degradation of Iran's regional network, completely eliminated influence of Iran in Syria, diminished Iran's influence in Lebanon, and weakened allied non-state actors who are armed groups, basically, and it lost sympathetic governments in the region, right? Yet, these tactical gains came at strategic price. The erosion of deterrence credibility and the perception of overreach. Because from a systematic perspective, Israel's doctrine now faces imperial fatigue. To maintain dominance, it must extend power faster than the rivals adapt. But its resources, political, economic, and moral, it's not infinite. It is finite, right? Every new front, every new war drains the legitimacy and distorts the image of the entire enterprise. And because Washington's own global posture is shifting from unipolar certainty to multipolar adjustment, Tel Aviv may no longer, or cannot for a longer time, assume infinite backing from the US. So it has to also adjust according to the new circumstances in the region. And that is why they have accelerated this barbaric onslaught against the Palestinians. They moved from the phase of few decades of a slow ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians into acceleration of this process because of the shift in the balance of power, and because if the US cannot sustain itself as an absolute hegemon, a superpower in the world, and if other powers rise and we have multipolar world, then the US will no longer have an infinite energy and resources to back Israel in any future conflict in the region. And that is why they want to solve okay, Kevork, we didn't leave the chat. YouTube made it unavailable midstream. I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden, as you said, half the viewers left. I don't know if there was a technical problem on YouTube but it made no sense for me all of a sudden, like 200 people leaving at once. So probably there was a technical problem which led into some problem. Your stream got a strike. I don't know, unavailable. So some people say that the stream got a strike, and that is the problem basically. But I am checking my YouTube channel now, and it is online. I don't see it receiving a strike, but probably somebody or more people basically reported, because it made no sense all of a sudden. A bunch of 200 people in 2 seconds left. It doesn't happen that way, in my opinion. Violation of guidelines. So that's why it said stream unavailable, but then came back on YouTube, said your stream violated politics. Policies of what? Anyways, I can see the stream is still on, and people are watching it, but probably the video has been completely suppressed. So what I'm going to do is I will finish this stream in 10 or 15 minutes, and then I will post it back as a video, right? It said policy violations. Policies infringement, something like that. Some bot reported it. Yeah, I think so. Something happened because all of a sudden, many people left all of a sudden, and I think that's not logical. So what I'm going to do is I will re-upload this video later as how to say normal video, because to be honest with you, I usually receive 500 people live on the streams, and now we have 130 again. So I think perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this interview is not the strategic implications, right? But also the moral implications. You see the language they use to describe the Palestinians or Gaza, comparing them to a parking lot or treating their populations as expendable variables, right? This only exposes the psychological foundation of Israel's modern warfare, and that is, unfortunately, dehumanization as normalization. This rhetoric, in my opinion, is not incidental. It is instrumental in this case. By framing Palestinians as obstacles rather than people, policymakers make extreme measures, and these measures appear then reasonable, right? From siege to collective punishment, every act can be rationalized as self-defense once this empathy has been diminished and gone from the equation. And yet, unfortunately for them, like, history shows that such approaches never bring security. They bring radicalization, despair, and enduring hatred. So for the international community, in my opinion, this language should serve as a diagnostic tool. Whenever a conflict discourse erases human identity in favor of targets, it signals that the political imagination has completely collapsed, right? And so if true peace, my friends, begins not with treaties, but with the rehumanization of those rendered invisible. So to understand why these attitudes persist, we must situate them within the structure of global power. Israel's security model is not an isolated anomaly, right? It mirrors the logic of its principal ally, the United States. Both operate through preemptive containment, acting first to prevent potential threats from maturing. This strategy, it's rooted in Cold War thinking, and it assumes permanent instability as the price of dominance. When exported to the Middle East, it produces a region where wars are never declared, yet never end. Each campaign generates the conditions for the next. Reconstruction funds tied to conditional sovereignty, political elites rewarded for compliance, and resistance movements radicalized by exclusion. The result is a self-perpetuating ecosystem of conflict management rather than conflict resolution. So from a realist standpoint, which I believe in realism, this serves short-term interests, arms sales, strategic depth, and diplomatic leverage. But from a civilizational standpoint, it corrodes the very fabric of international law and moral order. The line between deterrence and domination, between defense and occupation, dissolves completely, and this leaves behind a vacuum where might alone defines what is right. And this is what we are seeing nowadays in Gaza. And this is how we know all these rulers and leaders are kissing the hand of Trump, basically, right? It seems this stream has gone again to a normal pace. All of a sudden, people joined it. I don't know what is happening, to be honest with you, but something. That's why I told you, my friends, I'm deleting these spams because they bring with them lots of headache. And probably YouTube thinks that there is some spamming going on in this video, and they completely pressed it, right? So for Syria, Lebanon, Iran and Palestine, the lesson is clear. Military parity with Israel is improbable, but strategic resilience is achievable through alliances, deterrence, and narrative power. When Israel, this is something that everybody has to understand. What Israel fears most is not a conventional army, but a coherent counter vision in the region, one that unites these state and non-state actors with reform, identity, and inclusivity. That's why they hated pan-Arabism, and they destroyed it completely, and they replaced it with client states, basically, in the region. Now, Tehran's influence network once embodied that vision, but their overextension and, of course, the sectarian radicalization of the people in the region weakened their alliances. So a renewed approach must be pragmatic, sovereign, and development focused. And only then this could restore regional balance more effectively than any missile. But is it going to happen or not? I truly doubt it in the near future. So I think in this case, we have to... no, bro, you got reported by God's chosen. It seems so, yes. Find that video with the ex-Mossad talking. Okay, I will let you know now where you can find that video. So I will post a link in the description. Sorry, in the live chat. You can click on the link. It's in the live chat, and you can watch it if you like. In this case, I think it's very important also to shed light on an article published by on Substack on predictive history. And some of you is okay with Professor Jiang Quikin or Chwikin. I'm butchering his name. Others are not okay, but I found this article interesting. I think that in order to truly grasp what the statements of this former Mossad mean, we must also place them inside a broader conceptual framework. And this is the idea of Pax Judaica, or what is, or AKA an Israeli-dominated regional order. Now, Professor Jiang Chwikin article titled The Limits of Pax Judaica, or loosely translated as The Limits of Jewish Peace, Professor Jiang warned that any attempt by Israel to impose lasting hegemony in the Middle East is bound to face structural resistance, both from inside and outside. His argument is that, as we will expand, as we already expanded today, map directly onto the Abraham's confessions reveal that even Israel's secret strategy is constrained by geopolitical realities, internal contradiction, and the cycle of violence it nurtures. So if I want to use Professor Chiang's reasoning as a lens to interpret the former Mossad's words, I want to make few connections, right? So let me walk you through the major connections that I want to make between the former Mossad confessions and Professor Chiang's conceptual arguments. First is the illusion of perpetual order. Chiang's argument that Pax Judaica promises a regional order under Israeli-dominated security architecture akin to Pax Romana or Pax Britannica, but such a system is inherently unstable, he says. Hegemons provoke resistance, rely on coercion, and struggle to maintain legitimacy across diverse factions, across diverse, fractious societies. The former Mossad's confessions here, of course, admitting that Israel didn't finish the job because it always needs a perpetual enemy. This is more than a tactical admission, right? It's a structural signal that Israel sees conflict as the glue of its order. And in other words, the peace of Pax Judaica can only persist when wars are ongoing somewhere. So if I want to make connection between this statement and this confession, or this argument of Professor Chiang and the confession of the former Mossad agent Abraham, Chiang would argue that Israel must manufacture conflict to sustain its regional dominance, and Avraham confirms that from the inside. He says peace is less gold than a myth because no end is baked into their strategy. So I just wanted to make this very fast connection between these two. I don't know if I want to call a gentleman, because one of them is definitely not a gentleman, and definitely not. He doesn't see us with respect. In any ways, I think today's stream has been technically a little bit difficult due to the spamming which happened in the live chat and the reporting on this live stream. Unfortunately, I mean, I work very hard to bring to you this live streaming, and I work for hours, and it just goes in a matter of like this, you know. So what I'm going to do is now I will end the live streaming, unfortunately, and I will re-upload this stream as a video on Syriana Analysis, because most of the time, half and more of the usual audience were gone because of this reporting, because of the technical problem, because of YouTube saying this violated, unfortunately, their guidance or whatever. And this is because of the reporting. So I will end the stream here, and I will go to the editing part, and I will take out some of the parts, and I will post it as video again. So I will definitely see you tomorrow, guys, at 5 p.m. Central European Time, 11 a.m. Eastern American Time. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this video. Peace be upon you, upon your families. Salam.